So, what if a machine could learn to read the most complex language on the entire planet? I'm talking about our own genetic code. Today, we're going to dive into how artificial intelligence is starting to do exactly that and, what it could mean for the future of all of our health. Just think about this for a second. What if you could give an AI your genetic sequence, and it could pinpoint the exact tiny changes, the little mutations that might lead to a disease? Well, this isn't science fiction anymore. It is right at the cutting edge of genetics. And the reason this is such a huge deal is because of the sheer scale of the problem. I mean, your genome, your complete set of DNA, is just enormous. Trying to search through billions of letters of code to find one single typo responsible for a rare disease, it's like trying to find one misspelled word in an entire library. It's a nearly impossible task for a person to do alone. So this really sets the stage for the ultimate biological detective story. For decades, scientists have been the detectives here, right? Hunting for clues hidden in our DNA, trying to connect a specific genetic suspect to the scene of the crime, which, in this case, is a disease. And that has been the central quest all along, to finally figure out the link between your genotype, that's your genetic makeup, and your phenotype, your actual observable traits. But the process has always been incredibly slow, painstaking, and way too often, it just leads to a dead end. But this challenge isn't just some abstract academic thing. Cracking this code is one of the most urgent problems in modern medicine, with literally millions of families out there waiting for answers. And this number right here, represents a massive problem. 50%. That's how many patients who are suspected of having a rare genetic disorder never get a definitive diagnosis. Half. That 50% is what's known in the field as the clinical gap. It's that space between knowing something is genetic and knowing exactly what genetic change is causing it. It leaves so many families in this painful state of uncertainty, without real answers, without a clear diagnosis, and a lot of times without a clear path forward. Okay, so here's the crucial point. Not all of these genetic typos are actually bad. In fact, most of them are completely harmless. The real challenge is telling the difference between a pathogenic mutation, one that actually causes a disease, and a benign one, which is just a normal part of human variation. And that is exactly what we need to teach a computer to do. And this is where a totally new kind of intelligence enters the story. Researchers are now using these incredibly powerful AIs, not just to spot patterns, but to actually learn the fundamental language of biology itself. The big breakthrough technology here is something called a foundation model. Now, unlike older AIs that were trained for just one super specific task, these things are massive, general-purpose models. They get trained on just incredible amounts of data, which gives them this broad, foundational knowledge. Think of it like learning a language. Once you really know the language, you can then use it to do all sorts of things. Write a poem, a technical manual, whatever. The foundation is the same. And this quote just brilliantly explains the whole new approach. Instead of only studying human genes, these AI models are being trained on hundreds of millions of protein sequences from across the entire tree of life. We're talking bacteria, plants, animals, you name it. They're learning what a normal or healthy protein is supposed to look like anywhere in nature. The process is actually pretty elegant in concept. First, you just feed the AI this massive data set of all these protein sequences. From all that data, the AI isn't just memorizing things. It's learning the underlying grammar of life, the rules that say how a functional protein is supposed to be built. Then, once it knows all the rules, it can instantly spot a mutation that breaks them and flag it as being potentially harmful. Okay, but this technology isn't just for those rare single-gene diseases. Not at all. It's now being expanded to start tackling some of the most common and complex health problems that we all face. So it turns out, the vast majority of our DNA doesn't actually code for proteins. Wild, right? Instead, these non-coding regions, they act more like the genome's master control panel, a whole bunch of switches that turn genes on and off. And they play this huge role in common stuff like heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. AI is now helping us finally understand this incredibly complex system. This has led to something called polygenic risk scores. See, for common diseases, there isn't just one single typo. Instead, there are thousands of tiny little genetic variations that each add a small amount to your overall risk. What AI can do now is analyze all of these at once to create a personalized risk landscape, basically estimating your inherited predisposition for certain conditions. So, where is all of this headed? Well, like any powerful new technology, the ability for AI to read our DNA comes with both incredible promise and, yeah, some pretty significant challenges that we really need to think about. The promise is honestly breathtaking. We are looking at a future with faster, more accurate diagnoses for rare diseases, finally closing that clinical gap. We're seeing the beginning of truly personalized risk prediction. And as we get a deeper understanding of the genome's language, whole new ways to develop drugs and therapies. But, and this is a big but, there are major hurdles. The genetic data that we're using to train these AIs is overwhelmingly from people of European ancestry, which means the predictions are way less accurate for other populations. The models can also be black boxes. We get an answer, but we don't always know how the AI got there. We also need really careful clinical guidelines before this stuff is used in hospitals, and we have to face the growing gap between what well-funded tech companies and university labs can actually do. So at the end of the day, AI is learning to read the book of life, a book written in a language that we are only just beginning to understand ourselves. The question we're left with isn't if it will read it, but what are we going to do with that knowledge? Are we ready for what it's going to tell us about ourselves?